see a white house with a pink pipe and a pink windowsill, and that's the house that Ringo Starr saw out the remains of his life in Liverpool, just down there, number 12 Admiral Grove. Elsie didn't live on her own. She'd met Harry Graves by that point. Where did she meet Harry Graves? In the pub, top end of the street. Where else do you meet a man? You know, in the pub, of course. Look at this pub though, if you don't mind. Above the front window, this building appeared on the sleeve of Ringo Starr's first solo album, Sentimental Journey. Elsie used to love going in there and singing and playing on the upright piano in the front room. Her favourite song to sing and play, Sentimental Journey, Doris Day, of course, wartime classics. Penny Lane! There you go. Street signs on the left and right hand side. We're going to park up here, if you don't mind. Everybody!
Penny Lane is in my ears, and in my life. Beneath the blue suburban skies, I sit and meanwhile.
Okay guys, we're at the top end of Penny Lane now. Just about to go off, past the lights. Don't be like those people, they're getting the picture taken with the barbershop just there. That's not the barbershop at Penny Lane. Okay, they built that many years afterwards, just trying to cash in on the name of the Beatles. He built a barbershop on Penny Lane, but it's not the barbershop at Penny Lane. Caused confusion ever since. So quite frankly, I'm disgusted by them, if you really want the truth, so don't take a picture of them. Trying to make a living off the back of the Beatles. I think it's just disgusting to tell you the truth. You wouldn't find me Dennis doing that. Moving swiftly on, Look directly in front of us if you don't mind. There's a white building, it's about to come into view, we will get closer towards it. The white building is the shelter in the middle of the roundabout as referenced in the Penny Lane song, okay? Why on earth is the Penny Lane song not about this street, but about the area in front of us? It's actually called Smithdown Place, the area ahead of us, but that's what the song is all about. All the buses that came here, by the way, had Penny Lane on the front of them, and they were never ever going down Penny Lane. They were going to the shelter in the middle of the roundabout. It was basically the south end of Liverpool's bus terminus directly in front of us. The shelter in the middle of the roundabout was the public ticket office and the public toilet for the south end of Liverpool's bus terminus. The whole song is about a bus terminus that's directly in front of us, seriously. On the right hand side you're going to see St Barnabas' Church, where Paul McCartney successfully became a choir boy, okay, so that's something that's significant. But why on earth did the Beatles write a song about a bus terminus? I know you're all wondering that, aren't you? Every day Paul McCartney had to get the 86 bus to Penny Lane. It had Penny Lane written across the front of it. It would drop him off behind the shelter in the middle of the roundabout, where he would sit, observe and wait for his bus into the city centre to get to school. There you have it guys. Look on your left hand side, the Penny Lane surgery where the banker never wore his Mac in the pouring rain. Very strange, but keep your cameras out because this is what you're looking for. There it is, Tony Slavin's barbershop, arguably one of the most photographed and most famous barbershops in the world. The last time Paul McCartney sat in the barber's chair? 19 months ago. I give you the answers like 2 minutes ago. 19. So did I done this carpool karaoke? He was there for you know. 19 months ago, Paul was last in the barber's chair, and he was last behind the shelter in the middle of the roundabout. If I have done my job correctly, you now know that the whole song is about Paul McCartney being sat waiting for his bus. You'll never hear the song in the same way ever again. If you do this, okay. Number 12, just it. I've just felt a little bit of rain on my head. It's gonna get me running, yeah. Number 12, Old Grove. So here it is, guys. I'll say to us that are here right now, you can get a picture of the house and with the house. It's no problem at all. Just don't try and get inside. Someone lives there, so don't do it. George lived here for just under 7 years, so the length of time isn't the most important thing. What is important is that the whole of George's life started there on the 24th, 25th of February, 1943. 97 Queen's Drive, and that is the family home of Brian Epstein. This is where Brian Epstein was raised, in this lovely suburb in Liverpool called Chilwell. I always say you can put Ringo's house and George's house together, times it by 10, and it doesn't make up the size of that house, does it? It's lovely. Massive big house in the suburbs of Liverpool. Brian did not really have a rags to riches story like the rest of the lads did in some ways, but he was responsible for the lads' rise to fame like the world had never seen the likes of before. He wasn't the first manager of the Beatles. The first manager was Alan Williams. Alan was famous because he sent the Beatles off to Hamburg in Germany, where the lads made a great name for themselves and they became a very good band as well. Of course, when they came back, Alan wanted nothing to do with the Beatles at all. because he was paid no commission. He was promised commission, but John Lennon kept it all for himself. So Alan wanted nothing to do with the Beatles at all. Brian would discover the Beatles, and first things first, he would chat to Alan. He'd say, Alan, what can you tell me about your band, the Beatles? And Alan said, Brian, don't go near them, don't touch them with a barge pole, they'll cause you nothing but trouble growing up. He did live with his mum and dad. He lived with his Aunt Mimi and his Uncle George. John Lennon didn't have the ease of childhood. He was born on the 9th of October 1940, not long after his birth. His father left for sea. And of course he didn't grow up with a dad then from that moment on, because when he came back, Julia had moved on, his mother. She also had not heard from Alf in 4 years, so understandably so, she thought he'd died. And all of a sudden he came back. He still had a big push to be in his son's life. That was mainly through a kidnap attempt. He took John to Blackpool for 2 weeks. Nobody knew where they were staying, until eventually Julia found out. She confronted Alf. Alf confessed his kidnapping, but also confessed that he was going to take John to New Zealand on the next boat. He'd already planned going over there. It was a good job that Julia found them. Of course, Julia and Alf argued about who was to keep John, and eventually they decided that the best way to settle the argument was to invite a 5-year-old John Lennon into the room, and they would ask him, they would give him the choice, who would you rather live with, your mum or your dad? John had to make that choice at the age of 5. Initially he chose his dad. His mother was devastated. She picked up her belongings and went to walk out of the house, and then John started crying hysterically, shouting, Mummy, don't go. He chased after her, grabbed tight hold of her. Julia made sure that he came back to Liverpool with her. From that moment on, John would not see his dad again. The next time he would see his father was actually when he was front page news trying to cash in on his son's newfound fame by releasing a single of his own. So John would rekindle a relationship with his father, but of course not for long. As for John's mother, she came back to Liverpool. She was about to set up her new life with her new partner. They bought an apartment together, a very small apartment with only 1 bedroom, and that upset her older sister Mimi. She said, it's not right that you should move in with a man outside of wedlock, and it certainly isn't right that you should take John with you. She got social services involved. Julia felt like she had no other choice but to give John over to her older sister Mimi to bring up instead. John would grow up, he would still see his mother quite regularly, to tell you the truth, and once he became a teenager, he'd be sneaking out of Mimi's house all the time to spend time with his mother. When he was 14, 15 years of age, he became inseparable from his mother. They'd spent lots of time together, mainly because in Julia's house was a rock and roll record player, of course, rock and roll vinyls, I should say. She had a record player. Maybe she played other things on it, I don't know. I don't know where them words came from just then. But no, she was playing rock and roll. She was playing the likes of Elvis, Fats Domino, the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly. John fell in love with rock and roll, but his mother did have a banjo. So she taught John all of his first chords on the guitar. Banjo style, of course, only 4 strings. John had a very unique way of playing the guitar at first. That was enough for John to set up his own band. Again, encouraged by his mother, Julia said, you should set up a band, be like Elvis. So John did. He went into his school one day, said to the lads, you joining me band? Some of them couldn't play a musical instrument. They said, tough, you joining the band? It's a skiffle band, it doesn't matter. They played many gigs, but their most historical gig was on this road just here. On the 6th of July 1957, the Quarrymen played at the Walton Village Fete. We will pull into this bus stop if you don't mind, Dennis, you're the best. What a guy. I want us to look on our right, if you don't mind. There's an orange brick building just there. It's very important to the story, okay? You see, the Quarrymen played at the Walton Village Fete. It was on a field behind the church on your left-hand side, but the gig was terrible. John was 16 years of age, playing an untuned guitar, and he was drunk on the day. He was forgetting all the words to the songs he was singing. Wasn't one for the history books. The rest of the lads in the band were no good anyway. They all were playing untuned instruments. They couldn't tune up any of the instruments themselves, you know. They finished the gig, they left, they walked down this road with their musical instruments and down that pathway, just on your right hand side. They entered into that orange brick building, St. Peter's Church Hall. Okay, it was a new build at the time, of course. They went in there, they started playing their musical instruments, getting ready for the grand dance which was taking place in the night time. They started playing their musical instruments when all of a sudden one of John Lennon's best friends walked into the room. His name was Ivan Vaughan. He walked straight over to John and said, John, I hope you don't mind if I bring a friend of mine in. He watched the whole of that first act. His name is Paul McCartney. This area isn't only one of the nicest villages in the northwest of England, it's the birthplace of the Beatles, the birthplace of the greatest songwriting partnership in history. They came face to face some 20 metres on our right hand side. John Lennon, drunk on the day, he was introduced to Paul, He said, "What did you think of that, mate?" And Paul looked back at John and said, "It wasn't too bad," trying to be a bit cheeky to John. And John said, "Do you think you can do any better then?" So someone handed him a guitar. In front of the whole room, he tuned up the guitar. It impressed all of them because they couldn't tune up instruments themselves. You know. But it was a right-handed guitar, and he had to turn it the other way around because he's left-handed, and he played a song called 20 Flight Rock, and it changed the course of history. Not long afterwards, John invited Paul to join the Quarrymen, and Paul McCartney would say no. Once he got back from Boy Scout camp, that's when he said yes. How very rock and roll of Paul McCartney. Yeah. Looking on your left, you'll see John Lennon's childhood home, number 251 Menlove Avenue. The only house that you're going to see today with a blue English heritage plaque on the front of it. Guys, we will not be getting off the coach at this point. We parked the coach here long enough for us all to get decent photographs from the window, okay? But we do not have the permissions. In fact, most tour companies don't actually officially have the permissions to let people off here, especially not 53 people. The neighbours would kill us. Look at the top left-hand window if you don't mind. That was John Lennon's bedroom.
On our way to Paul McCartney's house where he grew up.
The building next door to it. The building's got 4 pillars on the front of it. It's more of a yellowy sandstone coloured building. That's the old Liverpool Institute for Boys, and that's the high school that Paul McCartney and George Harrison attended. So we have completed a day in the life to bring you back here. Years later, by the way, after the lads had left these buildings, they fell into a terrible state of disrepair. They were falling apart, and a very wealthy man heard about it. You might have heard of this wealthy man before. His name, Sir Paul McCartney. I think I've mentioned him once or twice on the tour. He bought both of the buildings as well as a few of the wealthy investors, and of course he set up his own college called Lipper. He comes back to Lipper every single year to present the graduation ceremony to his own students in his own city, in his own college.
Right, so we've had a really good day. We've been to the museum, we've been on a magical bus tour. Absolutely shattered now, but I'm going to take you for a very quick walk around the lobby of the hotel and around. Sorry I haven't really done much talking on this, but it's been very full on, lots to do, but we're going to have a look around now very quickly. It's quite late now, so I'm going to try and be quiet. It's quite late, we're quite tired, going home tomorrow, so I'm going to try and just have some brunch in the morning, and then we've got to head to the train station. But it's been an amazing weekend. Liverpool is an absolutely amazing place, and I definitely recommend, if ever you've got a chance to come here, then to do it. Brilliant place. Anyway, I'll take you around. Holly doesn't like these patterns on the floor because she thinks it looks a bit like it's a reflection of the light, but it's quite cool, look. But it's actually just a pattern on the floor. last morning at the hotel, packed up, ready to leave now. Recap on our weekend. We arrived on Saturday.
Yes.
And we went to, what was the first museum called?
The Magical Beatles Museum or something.
Right, that's the one that was owned by Pete's Best family. No, Pete Best. Pete
I think
Best.
it's his only family.
Yeah. And that had lots of artefacts and things mainly in there. That was pretty good. Excuse me. Then we went in the afternoon. Oh no, that was the evening, wasn't it? Then we came.
Cavern.
Yeah, we went
for dinner.
We went to dinner at a restaurant called La Famiglia, which was very nice Italian restaurant. We then went to the Cavern to watch a Beatles tribute band, and then came back very tired. And then on Sunday morning we went down to Albert Dock, which was very nice. Had breakfast at Greg's. Then we went down to the Albert Dock. And then we went into the Beatles Story, is that correct? Yeah. Beatles Story sort of museum, which was really good. There was also a maritime day going on down there with the HMS Prince of Wales, was it?
Something like that,
so. Yeah, so that was good, but we didn't obviously have time to go to that. We went from the museum to the Magical Mystery Bus Tour. We had a tour rep called Dale and a driver called Dennis. That's right, wasn't it?
I think so.
And they were really good, actually. A really good tour. I would recommend, if anybody is interested in the Beatles and comes to Liverpool, that was a fantastic tour, and he had lots of information, found out lots of things. And then after that, we came back to the hotel briefly, and then we went off for a walk around the town. Holly went to some vintage shops. We then went to La Tasca for some tapas for tea or dinner, and then we came back. We had a little nose in the Cavern again. There was another live band playing, but we were a bit shattered, to be honest, weren't we? So we bought some merch in there, had a wander around, and then came back to the hotel, had a little wander around the hotel, and then just chilled out for the evening. So this morning we're all packed up, ready to go, and we are going to go and get some brunch and have a wander around. We're not quite sure yet where we're going to wander, and then we are going to make our way back to the train station. But I have to say, I've waited all my life to come here. I've always wanted to come just because I'm such a Beatles fan. Never got around to it, and it has far exceeded my expectations. It's a beautiful city. I'm really loving it here. I'm definitely coming back. I'm definitely bringing Gary back here, and I just want to say a really big thank you to Holly, because this was a present from Holly for me
5 years ago.
Yeah, well, it's been a while coming, because she actually wanted to do this for my birthday and Christmas a few years back, and made me a really lovely hand-drawn card with the help thing on the front and everything, and it was really lovely, but unfortunately, because of so many circumstances, like I was ill, and then Holly, you know, couldn't get time off, or I couldn't get time away, or whatever, and then obviously with Mum being poorly and so on, it just hasn't happened. But so this year Holly wanted to make it happen, so thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, and I feel quite emotional, actually. It's been a really lovely weekend, so thank you. Oh. Anyway, we're going to go off before I cry now and have some breakfast, so we'll see you later.